Hello, everybody. I'm back, and yeah, it's been a couple days since my last video, but I've been super busy. Um, no time for chess, let alone recording videos. But I have some time now to make this video, and this is a recap of round two from the 2023 BC Open that I came back from last week. In this round, I was playing Joshua Imoo, who I actually played back, I think it was 2019. I played him in the Grand Pacific Open in the last round, I think it was. And I played very poorly that game. I remember the exact issue I had. Um, I locked in my bishop into the corner. I might even have a video of that. I can't remember if no, maybe I don't. I might not have had, I think I might have just done that recap on Twitch, but not on YouTube. Um, yeah, it's kind of funny because the last time I played Joshua, he was shorter because he's a young man. I don't know how old he is. I'm guessing maybe it's really hard to. I'm really bad at guessing ages. Maybe he might have been about 16. Um, but in 2019, is that already 4 years ago now? Well, almost. Yeah, almost 4 years ago. That's ridiculous. But yeah, he would have been maybe 12 or so. What's funny is that when I just talked to him very briefly before the round started, and I mentioned that we played before, and he wasn't sure about it. But then after a bit, he said, "Oh yeah, round six, right?" And yeah, he's right. So chess players often have good memories. Um, and then when I reminded him about how I lost the game or the mistake I made, he seemed to vaguely recall that as well, which is pretty ridiculous. Anyways, he seems like a nice young man, a nice young kid, and he's improved uh, over the past few years. He actually was, I think I had it open here, but he was actually for the CFC rating, he was about, I think, 1850, or it might have been more than that. Just a few months ago, he dropped a little bit since then, but yeah, and he also had a FIDE rating. So if you guys know the story, and as a recap and a spoiler, I lost the first game, and what I was hoping for in this tournament was to get a FIDE rating, and in order to get a FIDE rating, you need a result, and you need a result after playing 5 FIDE rated players. So if after playing 5 FIDE rated players you get a draw or a win or more than that, then you can get a FIDE rating. So I lost the first game against a FIDE rated opponent, and so I was hoping to get a win or a draw against at least one person, and then play enough games against other FIDE rated opponents to get a FIDE rated opponent, to get a FIDE rating. So that was one of my goals this tournament. And as I mentioned, he does have a FIDE rating. Okay. With all of that introduction said, let's go. The other thing I should mention is that just like the first round, I was looking to avenge my loss from the last time we played, because I lost to my first round opponent. Well, I've lost to him twice now, and I've lost to this opponent the last time we played. So I was hoping to avenge that loss. And I think, I can't remember what we played last time, but I think he was white the last time we played as well. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So we played the Sicilian. He plays the closed Sicilian, I guess you could call it at this point. And yeah, he proceeds with a Grand Prix setup. Now, I can't remember the last time I faced this in a tournament. It might have been against Jose Prem, although I'm not 100% sure that was a Grand Prix. I think it was, though. And he killed me quickly. My repertoire against this is good in the sense that eval wise it's quite good, but this is a very sharp line and very, very dangerous. Black has to defend very carefully. There is a lot of venom to this opening, and it works very well in blitz for that reason. Of course, this is not blitz. This is a classical time control. But I'm just trying to tell you how dangerous this opening is. It is extremely, extremely aggressive. Yeah, anyways, I played G6. He plays knight F3. This is all theory, right? Bishop G7. And he played Bishop B5, which surprised me because the main line here is Bishop C4, right here, to start eyeing attacks on the king side. This is a move, though. It's not like I haven't seen this before. This is certainly a move, Bishop B5. But it doesn't really go with the spirit of the Grand Prix, which is, again, just to really to have this big attack on the king side here. But I actually had this in an online game like a couple days before, or maybe not a couple days, but maybe 3 or 4 days before. And it was fresh in my memory of how I respond to it, which was Bishop D7. You can play other stuff as well, which is equally fine. But the reason I play Bishop D7 is because I actually want to reserve my knight to go to C6. The reason I do that is because it will then get into a familiar setup of what I play against the main line against the Grand Prix. So I like to have controls over the center with my knight, and that's why I block with the bishop instead of blocking with the knight on C6 or knight D7, for example. He traded, and I take with the queen, just again for the same reasons. I want to keep the knight available for C6. And he played D3, this is all pretty normal. Well, no, not pretty normal. This is all normal. And I played E6 because I want to bring my knight to E7. I think you can also play knight F6 here, which is fine. But again, I like to go to familiar waters in all my openings. I like to kind of transpose to similar positions that I play. So that's why I played E6, because I want to put my knight on E7. For one thing, it can help defend G6 against this Grand Prix attack. He castles. I play knight E7. Queen E1. So Queen E1 might look weird if you're not familiar with this opening, but this is pretty much main line. Now, again, the way my opponent played this is not main line because he got rid of his light squared bishop. Excuse me. Oh, and in the main line, the bishop is still on C4, which I mentioned several times now. But the thing is, the point of Queen E1 is the queen wants to maneuver to H4, and then ideas such as knight G5, and if black castles, there's a mate threat. And this is just where some of the aggression starts. But normally, because white's light squared bishop is normally on C4, this adds even more attacking potential with ideas like F5, because there's now pressure along the A2 G8 diagonal, and once the F pawn pushes, I think there's even cases where, because I can't remember exactly, but I think the bishop can come to G5, and there's just a lot of pressure here from white. But that's the point of Queen E1. It's to go to H4. So I castled Queen H4 and bring the other knight to C6. And then he played F5, which is actually a blunder. Now, at the time, I just thought my opponent knew what he was doing, and I assumed it was just we're just playing essentially. I know it's not the main line, but I thought it would all be the same as the main line. But this is a blunder. Like, this is a big deal. I think the eval was about -2 or something. Like, it's significant. And the reason it's a mistake here is because my opponent had messed up. He basically mixed things up. He mixed two systems into one, which is he played kind of like a Moscow variation when he played Bishop B5, but then he continued to play it like a normal Grand Prix setup. And the problem with F5 now is, again, I've said it many times, but since he doesn't have a bishop on C4, this pressure that F5 creates on the light squares, it doesn't have the same impact. And so he actually made this move and then he got up to walk around. My guess is because he probably was pretty confident that, like, because this is a very aggressive looking move. He probably thought I was going to be like hands on my head and be like, oh no, what do I do now? So he got up to walk around. But actually, I was not scared of this because I've done quite a bit of work on against the Grand Prix. But I actually blundered back because I also kind of forgot about the difference of him getting rid of the light squared bishop earlier. And so what I should have played was e takes f5, because that's just a free pawn. No strings attached. And if the bishop was on c4, I forget, but I think there might have been some, like a follow-up with knight d5, for example. But there's differences. There's some subtleties in the position. But because of this nuance, this difference, I should have just taken the pawn. It's just a free pawn. Now, I did take the pawn, but I took it with the g pawn. And that's actually the better way to recapture if the bishop is still on c4. But I kind of just automatically went with that. Now, when I did take with the g pawn, I think that kind of confused him a little bit, because he thought for a little bit here, not like a crazy amount of time, but I don't think he was expecting g takes f5. Just reading my notes here. I think I might have briefly considered e takes, but I just kind of thought that my knight would be good on g6. And that might have been the other reason I took with the g pawn. And I think part of the reason is, sorry, another reason why taking with the e pawn is good is because the computer actually, I feel the computer actually prefers the g pawn being left on g6 because it's kind of more shelter for my king. But anyways, he continued with bishop h6, which seems very natural. And I play knight g6, attacking his queen. And then he continued with queen h5. And this scared me. And I'm just reading my notes here. So I wrote So queen h5, I was actually starting to panic here a little bit. The more I looked at the position, the more I started to panic, because how do you deal with knight g5? My score sheets are over there, so I could get up and get them to see how long I spent on this move, but it was a bit, I don't know, probably like 7. I'll just get it. Hang on. Okay. What move are we on? 13. Yeah, I spent 7 minutes, which is a fair bit. Whoops. Yeah, I spent 7 minutes, And but yeah, so what I was saying is I was pretty scared here because knight g5. How do you deal with that? If I take the bishop, he just recaptures, and there's no way for me to defend against queen takes h7, mate. And if I don't take it, there's still knight g5 there. So I was really worrying here a bit. And then I finally played a move after the game, I actually went up to the skills room on the 3rd floor with my opponent, and we analyzed the game together. Not in super great detail because we're tired and so forth, but we did analyze it together. I just realized I should have my camera should have zoomed in a little bit, but okay, that's fine. And he actually thought my move was very good, and he didn't see this resource. So I played f6, and once I found f6, I mean, it's not a hard move to find, but when I saw that it would actually solve my issues, I was very pleased. Not happy, but pleased that this is still a scary position. But there was actually multiple ways to defend here. I think there were 3 at least. And I'm just reading my notes. So the downside to f6, which is what I played, is that it leaves us with ugly double isolated pawns here after white just recaptures on f5. But I did have other options. For example, I could have just taken on h6. And after queen h6, I can then play either f4 or... Wait, was that right? Yeah, I could play multiple moves like f4 or f6. And for example, even f4, if we bring the knight in, then I can just push the f pawn because my queen had an x-ray on the h7 pawn. So there were other ways to deal with this. And I think there might have been still another, I think even here, possibly f4 might have been okay. Because once again, if the knight comes in, very similar, f6 possibly might be okay, or I could again just take the bishop and then push the f pawn now. So there were other ways to defend than what I did. So f6 was actually a small mistake, a bit of a mistake. I could have done better than that. Okay, anyways, continuing. So he takes on f5 and I retake. And so this is the downside again to taking with the f pawn, that this is a pretty ugly structure for me. He played rook a e1. And then here I came up with a plan which was lazy. And I thought here for a while, because first of all, it's hard to find... Maybe it's not hard to find a plan. I just got lazy. So I could have just done something like brought in my rook to e1, to e8 rather, or just made basically any move. I think I was really concerned about time being of the essence here, in that like f5 seems to be falling very quickly. But my plan here, which was a tiny bit of hope chess thrown in, was I thought, okay, I might trade on h6 to get rid of a little bit of that pressure, and then play queen g7 to again remove his attacking queen from the equation, and then take with my king, and I'm up a pawn there. My pawn structure is not good, but I am up a pawn. Maybe I can get a draw. And my opponent is higher rated than me. Over the board, he's higher rated by almost 200 points, and he's FIDE rated. And I'm black. I would be happy with a draw here, more than happy. And I saw this, and this is where the laziness comes in. I saw bishop takes, queen takes, knight b5, and I was looking at this, and there's not a great way to deal with that. If I play a6, I just drop a pawn on d6. Should I make the moves on the board to show this? Maybe I will. So boom, boom, boom. This is what I was calculating. And there's a double threat of the knight attacking d6 and going into c7 and then rerouting here with a fork. Whoops, did not mean to do that. So if I defend this way, I lose my pawn on d6. And if I defend my pawn, once again, knight c7, and I can't deal with this threat. Or maybe, no, wait, here, could I? No, yeah, I can't deal with that threat. And I saw that, but I did this anyways. And I think that was laziness where I'm like, I don't know, I hope. No, I think part of it is, to be fair to myself, I think I did find, I thought I found a bit of a solution. I think I thought that rook f e8 solved my problems. So yeah, to be fair, I think I actually did find a solution to that, which is not an actual solution because this still hits. I still can't, or even if I did the other rook, it still happens. So I might have kind of talked myself into playing it. But even so, I knew this was dangerous for me. I shouldn't have done that. It was just laziness that I wanted to easily get rid of this. So I should have been less lazy. And so this is actually what happened in the game. I took the bishop, he recaptured, queen g7. And it is a blunder. This is what happened in the game. But luckily, he played knight d5. And I asked him about this. And I think he just simply, and he thought about knight b5, but I think he was just kind of like me. He thought that I could deal with it, and we just didn't calculate it properly. That I actually cannot stop knight c7 or the after effects of it. So I got very lucky that he didn't play knight d5. I mean, knight b5. Okay, so I then played rook a e8, just developing my undeveloped piece. And he plays knight c7 here. And here I thought for 11 minutes, which is significant, as I was concerned. Yeah, so what I was concerned about here was if I take on e1, if he takes with a knight, he suddenly has two threats. He's threatening to take on f5. I'll put this on the board, so because for some of you it's easier if I put it on the board. So if he takes with a knight, he's then threatening f5, and he's threatening this fork on e6. And how do I deal with both of those threats? And I was thinking here of a solution. I'm like, can I attack the knight? But then no, could he just give me a check and grabs the pawn? Can I don't know. Can I do anything? Can I bring the knight here? No, he just kicks it out. Actually, there's still the check here threat still. Yeah, so I just couldn't find a solution, and I was looking for something, and couldn't find it. If he takes with the rook, then I'm fine here. But if he takes with the knight, I'm not. So I was looking for something, and what do I do? Because he's attacking my rook right now. And so I ended up trading and then just deciding to just let him take f5. I am up a pawn, so I still have decent drawing chances. I just had to give up the pawn. But he actually made another mistake. He took with the rook. And I asked him about this after the game, and he said that he saw knight takes e1, but he simply missed king f7. He thought that he could go, he could follow up with knight e6. Starting to lose my voice. Good thing the game is going to be done soon. So, yeah, he thought he could follow up with knight e6, and that I didn't have a good solution to that. So he just simply made a mistake here. So I was very lucky he took it with the rook. I was quite surprised because my opponent made a few mistakes this game, as did I, but he's a strong player. Like, he actually won, I think it was during the pandemic when we played online. The Chess Federation played online instead of over the board. I think he won. It might have been the Grand Pacific, or it might have been the BC Open, but he actually won it one year. There weren't as many strong players entered as when people play over the board, but he is capable of being a very strong player. I mean, you don't get to like 1850 or 1860, whatever he was, without being strong. So anyways, he took it with the rook. I played king f7, and again, he just didn't account for king f7, and he was like, oh, crap, you know. So he plays knight d5. And then I thought for 14 minutes on my next move. And while I read my notes, maybe you can just think yourself why I thought for so long here. Yeah, so I am up a pawn, but my pawn structure is terrible, and my opponent agreed with me. Like, we both had the same evaluation in our heads that I'm up a pawn, but my pawns are atrocious here. So Stockfish actually give this at about -1 eval. But what's the plan here for me? For one thing, like, f5 is really weak. If I move this knight, then he's going to quickly come into knight h4. And so it's just kind of hard to find a plan here for black. And at the same time, I was once again feeling very pressured to get a result against a FIDE rated opponent. I was the second lowest rated player in this section, like 66 out of 67. So I was expected to lose every single game going in, and I just wanted a result. So I ended up playing knight ce5, and then I offered a draw. Offered a draw here. And one of the things, offering a draw over the board is interesting. I think it had the big psychological impact. Whoa, it's snowing. Sorry. Oftentimes I'm extremely hesitant to offer a draw because I don't want it to look like I'm scared. Because that could convey, that could build confidence to my opponent if I offer a draw. On the other hand, I think it gives them a lot to think about, because even if they're happy with their position, it's a big decision to decline a draw, because if they end up losing the game, they'll never forgive themselves when they had a draw offer, right? So my opponent actually thought here for 17 minutes on the next move, and I think part of that was him really considering, do I want to take the draw or not? And so 17 minutes, that's a significant amount of time. So my draw offer, at least it gave me that 17 minutes off his clock. It was useful for that alone. But he declined it, which I was not surprised at all. Even though I'm up a pawn, he's higher rated. He doesn't want to draw, right? He doesn't really want to go out of his way to get a draw, because if he gets a draw against me, he's going to lose rating. And I'm up a pawn, yet my pawns are terrible. So the fact that I'm up a pawn, it kind of nullifies itself. Anyways, he played knight d2, which I thought he might. and I played knight h4. So knight h4, I was pretty. I figured that knight h4 was not a great move, not a bad move, but it doesn't really do anything other than look menacing. But at the same time, I played it purely because we're starting to get. Okay, let's see how much time we had at this point. So we had a good amount of time. He had 34 minutes. I had 38 minutes. But instead of me just playing passively, this is very aggressive. And now I have threats of rook g8 and knight f3, right? Or after. Well, let me put this on the board because that's what happened. So I've got threats of rook g8. And I mean, that's really my only threat, but it is a threat, and it's stuff that he has to. This isn't an online game, right? It's a tournament game, so he can't just kind of ignore it. He's got to be careful here, and that puts him kind of on the back burner, on the back seat, and that makes me the one pushing, and that's why I play knight h4. Okay. He played rook f1. I played rook g8. He played g3 to stop that threat. And I played king e6 because eventually I'm going to have to move this knight, because if he moves the king, then my knight is under attack. So once I move the knight, then this pawn becomes undefended. So that's why I moved the king to defend the pawn. He gives me a check. Yeah, my voice is really going now. I bring the king back. And he gets out of the pin. And I retreat with my knight, the only move. He goes back to knight d5. I play king e6. And we agreed to a draw. So I officially was on my way to getting a FIDE rating. Now, I figured I probably wouldn't get enough other FIDE rated opponents for the rest of the tournament, so it might take me another FIDE rated tournament to get a FIDE rating, but at least I was on my way, and I had a result against a FIDE rated opponent in a FIDE rated tournament. So I was very happy for that reason alone. But I was also happy because I drew a game against an opponent who was 200 points higher than me. Basically, if I get a draw against anybody that is like, let's say 50 points higher than me or more, I'm happy because I know I'm going to gain rating, at least from that game. So the fact that he's almost 200 points, I don't know how many points I would get from this particular game. I could look it up, but it's probably something like, maybe, I don't know, I'm guessing maybe like 3 points maybe, but I 1624 was my current peak. So anything higher I'm very happy with. So that was the game. It was a draw against Joshua Imoo. Didn't quite avenge my previous loss against him, but maybe you could argue, well, like I almost did, because I gained some rating out of the game, and he will lose a little bit of rating from it. There were a number of mistakes in this game from both sides. One of them is I was lazy when I traded queens and allowed knight b5. I also was maybe a little bit hasty when I took on g5, when I took on f5 with my g pawn. I should have taken it with the e pawn. I forget if maybe it was just those two mistakes. Those are the two that stand out to me. So it wasn't anything major. Yeah. Okay. So that's round 2. So after round 2, my score was half a point out of 2 in the premier section, which I was actually happy. Like, this is a good result for me. I'm playing in a very, very tough section. Maybe the toughest section I've ever played in. And I'm not in last place, right? There were a number of people with 0 out of 2 after this round, and I was not one of them. So I was pretty happy. Okay. Yeah, that's it for now. Feel free to leave some comments or like the video, blah, 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 that good stuff. And I will be back with round 3 in 2 or 3 days from now. And that's it for now. Thanks for watching. See you soon.